What would you do if a 10-year-old kid in duct-taped boots claimed he could heal your child? And he was right. It was cold that morning in Phoenix, Arizona. Not cold enough to snow, but the kind that made your breath show and your fingertips sting. People rushed in and out of the Phoenix Children's Hospital on Camelback Road, bundled in scarves, clutching coffee cups, moving fast, like they could outrun whatever brought them there. But one person wasn't moving. He sat on a flattened cardboard box near the revolving doors, drawing quietly in a weather-beaten notebook. His name was Elijah Cade Wilson, just 10 years old. His coat was a size too big, sleeves rolled up, and one of his boots had duct tape across the toe. A red knit beanie rested low on his forehead, barely covering his ears. He didn't beg, didn't ask for help, just sat there watching people come and go. He was there most Fridays. Some days, he'd hum a faint tune, a melody his mother used to sing, barely audible over the hospital's bustle. Some hospital staff had tried to shoo him off when he first started showing up, but after a while they gave up. Cade didn't cause trouble. He smiled when spoken to, and when he wasn't sketching in his notebook, he was watching. Always watching. Most folks figured he had a parent inside, maybe a sibling, maybe he was just waiting for a ride. Nobody asked too many questions. Not in a place like that. Across the street, parked by a fire hydrant, a dark silver Range Rover idled. The engine stayed on, but the driver didn't move. Inside sat Michael Thompson, a man in his late 30s with a sharp jawline and graying temples. His tie was loose, his collar wrinkled. He had money. You could see it in the way his car gleamed, even under the hospital's fluorescent lights. But he looked like a man running out of gas. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, replaying the last specialist's words. No guarantees. In the back seat, a booster chair held his daughter, Ava, 7 years old, brown curls tucked behind one ear, legs tucked under a pink blanket. Her eyes were wide open, but she didn't say a word. The accident had changed everything. One minute she was climbing trees and racing her cousins in the backyard. The next, she was paralyzed from the waist down, sitting in silence. Michael opened the back door, scooped her up carefully, and carried her toward the entrance. He didn't notice Cade at first. Most people didn't. But Cade noticed him. He saw the way Michael held her like she might fall apart. The way her eyes stayed fixed on the sky, avoiding the building. Cade stared longer than usual. His pencil paused mid-sketch, as if he could see the weight Michael carried, heavier than Ava herself. Then, just before they passed, he stood up and called out, "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Michael stopped mid-step, not because he was offended or confused, but because of how the words were said. Not like a sales pitch, not like a joke, just soft, clear, and serious, like Cade believed it completely. Michael turned, eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" Cade didn't flinch. He stepped forward, tucking his notebook under his arm. "I said I can help her walk again." Michael stared at him, his arms tightened around Ava. "That's not funny, kid." "I wasn't joking." Cade's voice didn't shake. There was no smile, just that same quiet tone, a grown-up kind of stillness in a kid's body. Michael looked down at Cade's clothes, his taped-up boot, the cracked lenses of the glasses hanging from the boy's shirt collar. This had to be some weird coincidence, maybe even a scam. His jaw clenched, memories of false promises from alternative healers flashing through his mind. He turned and walked inside without another word, but inside, he couldn't stop thinking about it. The way the kids said it, not with hope, not with doubt, but like it was a fact. Something about that voice stayed stuck in Michael's head, and it was going to keep pulling at him until he came back. He sat in the waiting room, Ava on his lap, her small hands clutching his sleeve, and he wondered if he'd dismissed the boy too quickly. What if there was something to it? What if he'd just walked away from a chance, however small, for Ava? Michael tried to forget about the kid. For the next few hours, he sat through Ava's appointments, nodding through updates from therapists, neurologists, and specialists, all of them using the same phrases they always did: managing expectations, long road ahead, miracles take time. One doctor mentioned a new experimental treatment, but the risks made Michael's stomach turn. He'd heard it all, but Cade's words kept repeating in his mind like a stubborn itch. I can make your daughter walk again. By early afternoon, Michael and Ava stepped out of the building. The sun had broken through the clouds, but the cold was still sharp. He walked toward the car, cradling Ava as usual, when he noticed Cade again, still there. Same box, same notebook, except this time he was looking right at Michael like he knew he'd come back. Michael hesitated. He glanced at Ava. Her head rested on his shoulder, eyes closed. Her body was light, too light for a kid her age. He felt a pang of guilt, remembering how she used to run circles around him, now reduced to this fragile quiet. He turned. You again, he muttered, walking over. Why would you say something like that? You think this is funny? Cade shook his head slowly. No, sir. You don't even know her, Michael snapped, lowering Ava gently into the back seat. You don't know what she's been through. You don't know what we've been through. Cade didn't back down. I don't have to know her to help. Michael straightened up. You're what, 10? Almost 11 exactly. You're a little boy sitting outside a hospital with duct tape on your shoes. What could you possibly know about helping someone like my daughter? Cade looked down, his fingers tracing the edge of his notebook. My mama used to help people walk again, he said quietly. She was a massage therapist. She taught me stuff. She said the body remembers things, even when it forgets for a while. Michael stared at him, the skepticism hardening in his chest. So what, you watched her do some stretches and now you think you're a doctor? I watched her help a man walk after being in a chair for 6 years, Cade said, eyes lifting. She didn't have machines or nurses, just her hands, her patience, and faith. Michael opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. He glanced around. A nurse passed by, giving Cade a small wave. A janitor from the hospital nodded in the boy's direction. They all seemed to know him. The familiarity unnerved Michael. Why did they trust this kid? I'm not giving you money, Michael said. I didn't ask for money. Then what do you want? Cade took a deep breath and stepped forward. Just 90 minutes. Let me show you. Michael looked back at Ava, who had now opened her eyes and was watching both of them quietly. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I should walk away right now. Cade didn't move. I should call security, Michael added. Still, the boy stayed silent. Michael finally huffed. Fine, you want to waste your time, kid? Meet us at Desert Breeze Park tomorrow, 3 p.m. Don't be late. Cade nodded once. I'll be there. Michael climbed into the SUV, started the engine and pulled off without looking back. But in the rear-view mirror, Cade was still standing there, hands at his sides, face unreadable. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He paced the living room, the weight of his decision pressing down. What was he doing, trusting a kid? But Ava's quiet hope, the way she'd looked at Cade, gnawed at him. He'd failed her once, letting that accident happen. He couldn't fail her again by ignoring even the smallest chance. Back at home after dinner, Michael sat in his home office. Papers were spread across his desk. None of them made sense. He kept thinking about the way Cade stood there like he knew something. Ava poked her head into the room. Daddy? She asked. He turned. Yeah, baby. Who was that boy? Michael paused. Just somebody we met outside the hospital. He looked like he believed it, she said. Believed what? That I could walk? He stared at her, lips parting slightly. She smiled just barely and walked her fingers across the armrest of her wheelchair like they were legs. Her small gesture broke something in him, a flicker of the girl she used to be. But Michael wasn't smiling because for the first time in a long time, something inside him didn't feel numb. It felt dangerous. Like hope. Desert Breeze Park was the kind of place most people passed by without a second glance. A cracked basketball court, a few swings with chains that squeaked, and a patch of grass that tried to be a soccer field. On Thursdays, it was usually empty, especially around 3 p.m. But that day, Cade was already there, sitting on the bench closest to the big palm tree. He wore the same oversized jacket, but his notebook was tucked away. Instead, he had a small gym bag at his feet, and a folded towel on the bench beside him. At 3:07 p.m., Michael's SUV pulled up. He didn't say anything at first, just got Ava out, set her gently in her wheelchair, and wheeled her over to where Cade sat. He didn't make eye contact. His arms were crossed tight like he was already regretting being there. Cade stood up when they arrived. "Hi again," he said politely. Michael gave a stiff nod. Ava waved shyly. Cade smiled at her. "Hi, Ava." Her eyes lit up a little. "Hi." Michael raised an eyebrow. "How do you know her name?" "You said it yesterday," Cade replied. "I remember stuff." Michael. He just gestured at the towel. "So, what now? Magic carpet ride?" Cade ignored the jab. "No, sir. Just the basics." He opened his bag and pulled out a pair of socks, a tennis ball, a small jar of cocoa butter, and a plastic container filled with what looked like warm rice wrapped in cloth. Michael squinted. "What is all that stuff?" "My mom used," Cade answered. "The rice is for heat, helps loosen tight muscles. The ball is for pressure points." Michael folded his arms again. Cade turned to Ava. "If it's okay, can I work with your legs for a little while? Nothing hurts, I promise. And if anything feels weird, just say stop." "Okay." Ava looked up at her dad. He sighed. "You can try. Just be careful." Cade knelt down beside her chair. He gently unwrapped the blanket from her legs and placed the warm cloth rice pack over her thighs. Ava flinched slightly. "Too hot?" he asked. She shook her head. "It feels good." Cade nodded and waited. After a few minutes, he began to gently move her legs. Not yanking, not forcing, just small rotations side to side, up and down. Michael watched closely, ready to jump in if something went wrong, but nothing did. He felt a strange mix of relief and unease, wondering if he was being foolish or witnessing something extraordinary. "You ever do this before?" he asked, suspicious. Cade didn't look up. "My mama used to take me to shelters after school. She helped veterans, folks who couldn't afford therapy, and said, 'Everybody deserves to feel human again.' I used to carry her bag." Michael raised an eyebrow. "And she taught you this stuff?" "Yeah. Said the body don't always need fancy, just attention." He tapped lightly on Ava's knee with his knuckle. "You feel that?" "No," she whispered. Cade nodded again, unfazed. "That's okay, I'll keep asking." He kept talking to her while working, asking about her favorite colors, her favorite food, what shows she liked to watch. At first, her answers were short, but then she started asking him questions. "Do you live around here?" "Kind of." "Do you go to school?" "I used to." "Why not anymore?" Cade hesitated. "My mom got sick, then she passed. Been trying to figure things out since." Ava looked down. "I'm sorry." Cade gave her a small smile. "Thanks." Michael's posture softened slightly, but he didn't speak. The boy's words hit harder than he expected, stirring memories of his own losses, the way grief had reshaped his life after the accident. After about 45 minutes, Cade gently tapped her ankle again. "You feel that?" Ava blinked. "A little, like pressure." Cade looked up at Michael. "That's good." Michael squinted. "She sometimes says that during her regular sessions." "Yeah," Cade replied. "But those sessions are inside a room full of machines. Sometimes kids get scared of machines. They tighten up. But here," he gestured to the open park, "there's air, trees. Feels different." Michael didn't say anything, but he was definitely listening now. Cade helped Ava stretch both legs, then gave her some simple movements to try with her toes. Just wiggling. She tried. Nothing obvious happened, but she didn't look discouraged. "I'll show you again next week," Cade said, standing up. "It takes time, but your muscles," he pointed to her thighs, "they still remember how to be used. You just got to remind them." Ava smiled bigger this time. "Okay." Michael cleared his throat. "We're not promising anything," he said quickly. Cade nodded. "I'm not either. I'm just trying." Michael stared at him for a long second. Then, without warning, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded bill, and held it out. Cade stepped back. "No, sir. I don't want your money." Michael looked surprised. "Then why are you doing this?" Cade shrugged. "Because your daughter smiled." Michael looked down at Ava. She was still smiling. But he didn't understand how a boy who had lost everything could give so much to a girl he barely knew. He felt a pang of shame for his earlier distrust, wondering what kind of life had shaped this kid's unshakable resolve. The following Thursday was warmer, but Cade still wore his jacket, not because he needed it, but because it made him feel like his mom was close. She used to call it his helper's coat. He said every good healer needed something that reminded them why they care. He was already at Desert Breeze Park again by 2:45 p.m., towel laid out, supplies lined up, and a bottle of water sitting beside him. A few kids played basketball on the court nearby, and someone's dog barked in the distance. At exactly 3:00 p.m., Michael's SUV rolled up. Ava was grinning before the car even stopped. Cade waved at her. "Hi, Ava." "Hi," she chirped, her curls bouncing as Michael helped her into the wheelchair. Michael looked tired again, but different this time, less weighed down. He gave Cade a small nod, no words, but it was more than last week. Cade got to work. Same setup, same warm cloth pack, but this time something had shifted. Ava was trying now. "Can you press your heel into the ground?" Cade asked gently. She closed her eyes, concentrating. Nothing happened. "It's okay," he said. "Sometimes it takes your brain a while to find the right path. It's like trying to walk through a crowd. You just got to push through." Michael stood behind them, arms crossed again, but this time more to keep warm than to wall himself off. "Why do you do all this?" he asked suddenly. Cade glanced up. "Because I remember what it felt like when my mom used to help people. She made them feel like they mattered. I want to do that too." Michael nodded slowly. "You ever think about doing something else?" "Sometimes," Cade said, "but this feels right." Michael looked at Ava. She was tapping her toes. Barely, but they moved. For the first time, he didn't speak. He just watched. His heart raced, a mix of awe and fear, as if believing too much might jinx it. The next few Thursdays, they kept coming. Same time, same place. Cade taught Ava how to use rubber bands to strengthen her ankles. He rolled tennis balls under her feet to help her brain remember where they were. He showed Michael how to massage pressure points behind her knees and explained how each nerve had a job to do even when it went quiet. Each session felt like a battle against time as Michael wrestled with hope and the dread of another disappointment. And then came the bad day. It was the fourth Thursday. Cade showed up like always, but when the SUV pulled up, Ava wasn't smiling. Her eyes were red. Michael looked angry. "She doesn't want to do it today," he said sharply as he lifted her into the chair. Ava refused to look at either of them. Cade approached slowly. "What happened?" Ava crossed her arms. "I tried to move my legs this morning and nothing happened." "Nothing. I'm tired of trying. It's pointless." Michael looked away, jaw tight. "She's been frustrated all weekend." Cade nodded. He knelt beside her again. "You think I never get tired?" She didn't answer. "You think I didn't sit in a shelter and cry when my mom couldn't afford medicine and I had to just sit there and watch?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying the pain he rarely showed. Her eyes shifted toward him. "You're allowed to be mad. I'm mad sometimes too. But if you stop now, the part of you that wants to walk might stop trying too." She stared at the ground. "I don't want you to give up," he said softly. "Because I haven't." Silence. Then Ava whispered, "I'm scared." Michael turned. That was the first time she'd said that out loud. Cade leaned in closer. "I am too, but scared don't mean stop. It just means you're close to something big." Ava wiped her face. "Okay, let's try again." And they did. Cade guided her through the motions gently, with less talking this time, just presence, patience. Michael stepped in more too, helping her shift weight, encouraging every small twitch. He whispered to her, his voice thick. "You're stronger than you know, kiddo." After 45 minutes, Ava moved her right foot. Not a toe, her whole foot. It slid forward slow and stiff, but it moved. Michael knelt down beside her, blinking like he wasn't sure he'd seen it right. do it again," he said. She did. Cade smiled but didn't say anything. He just sat back and watched. Michael's hands trembled as he gripped the wheelchair, torn between joy and the fear that this progress might slip away. Later that night, Michael stood outside his house on Cigarro Lane, staring at the moon. He'd stopped asking himself who Cade really was. The question didn't matter anymore. Inside, Ava was giggling, retelling the footslide moment to her aunt on speakerphone. For the first time in 8 months, their house didn't feel like a hospital room. It felt like home again. But something inside Michael had started to shift. Not just his daughter's legs, but the weight in his own chest. The guilt, the pride, the wall he'd built between himself and the world. It was cracking. Wednesday afternoon, Michael sat in his office staring at an untouched contract. His phone buzzed every few minutes. Emails, calls, client updates, but none of it felt urgent anymore. What kept looping in his mind was that moment in the park, Ava's foot sliding forward like it belonged to her again. He'd seen it with his own eyes. And the person who made it happen was a 10-year-old with taped-up boots and no last name he'd ever heard before. He opened a new browser tab and typed Elijah Wilson, Phoenix. Nothing came up except a few scattered results. He clicked through old local newsletters and school databases, a few mentions of Elijah and his mother, Marissa Wilson, at a community clinic. No address, no recent info. He shut the laptop and leaned back. This kid was a ghost. Except he wasn't. The lack of answers only deepened Michael's unease, but also his respect. How could someone so young carry such conviction? By Thursday, they were back at Desert Breeze Park, but things felt different now. Michael brought an extra mat and a fold-out chair. He handed Cade a sandwich when they arrived. Didn't say anything about it, just placed it beside his gym bag. Cade gave a small thanks and tucked it away for later. "Ready, Ava?" he asked. She gave a big thumbs up. "Let's do it." They got into the routine. Heat packs, stretches, toe flexes. Today, Michael joined in fully. He sat cross-legged on the grass, doing each motion Cade explained. "Even messed it up once. You're bending the wrong way," Cade said with a grin. Michael gave him a side-eye. "I haven't stretched since college." They laughed, even Ava. About 30 minutes in, Cade leaned forward. "All right, Ava. Let's try something different." He unfolded a belt from his bag and placed it under her knees, showing Michael how to hold each end. "She's going to try to lift both knees now, just a little. We help balance her, she controls the movement." Michael blinked. "You sure?" Cade nodded. "She's ready." They gave her a few seconds. Her brow tightened, eyes narrowed. She grunted softly, and then her knees lifted slightly, barely an inch, but they lifted. Michael looked at her, stunned. "You did that?" She smiled. "I did it." He swallowed hard. "You really did it?" Cade nodded slowly, eyes on the belt. "See? The body remembers. You just have to be patient enough to let it talk." Michael looked at him. "You're something else, kid." Cade didn't respond, just started gently guiding Ava through the next stretch. Michael felt a surge of gratitude, but also a nagging fear. What if this progress was fleeting? After the session, as they packed up, Michael crouched beside Cade. "Where do you go after this?" Cade shrugged. "Around." Michael lowered his voice. "You got a place to sleep?" Cade hesitated, then said, "Sometimes." Michael exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "You ever think about coming to stay with us for a while?" Cade's eyes widened. "You serious?" "I got a guest room. You wouldn't be in the way." Cade looked down at his hands. "You sure your neighbors wouldn't mind a kid like me?" Michael gave a short laugh. "Man, after what you've done for my daughter, they'd better not say a word." Cade didn't answer right away, but Michael could see the wheels turning. The offer hung in the air, heavy with the weight of trust and vulnerability neither had expected to share. The next morning, Cade stood outside Michael's home, backpack slung over one shoulder, a rolled-up blanket tucked under his arm. Michael opened the door in sweatpants, a coffee mug in hand. "Right on time," he said. Ava rolled to the front hallway. "Cade," she smiled. "Hey, superstar." Michael stepped aside. Welcome home. The days that followed were quiet but meaningful. Cade got his own room, a soft bed, clean sheets, and a small desk. He didn't say much, but he never missed a morning stretch with Ava. She was moving both feet now, not walking yet, but the wheels were turning. Her brain was reaching out to her legs like it remembered the connection. Each small victory felt like a defiance of the accident that had stolen so much. One night, as Michael cleaned dishes, he paused and leaned on the counter. "Cade," he said over his shoulder, "you ever think about going back to school?" Cade, who was sketching at the kitchen table, glanced up. "Sometimes." Michael nodded. "You're smart. You could go far." Cade tilted his head. "I want to help people walk again like my mama did." Michael turned to face him. "Then let's figure out how to get you there." Cade gave a small smile. "Okay." They didn't say much more that night. They didn't need to. But for the first time in years, the Thompson household wasn't full of silence. It was full of small noises that meant life. Footsteps, laughter, scribbles, and healing. It started with a nurse from the Phoenix Children's Hospital. She was walking her dog through Desert Breeze Park one Thursday morning and spotted a familiar face. Ava. She hadn't seen her outside her wheelchair in months, let alone smiling, lifting her knees, moving her toes. And standing beside her was the same quiet kid who used to sit by the hospital doors every Friday. She didn't interrupt, just watched from a distance for a while. Then she went home and told her sister, who happened to work in patient services. A few days later, a physical therapist at the hospital mentioned to Michael, "Hey, someone told me Ava's improving. That true?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, thanks to someone we weren't expecting." Word spread fast. The next time they showed up to Desert Breeze Park, 2 other families were waiting at the bench near the big palm tree. One had a boy who used a walker, the other a girl recovering from a stroke. Both parents had heard about the kid who helped the Thompson girl move her legs again. Cade looked at Michael. Michael looked right back at him. "You don't have to," he said quietly. Cade adjusted the strap on his bag. "I want to." He gave up his usual time with Ava that day to work with the 2 new kids. He showed their parents how to use the same towel stretches, how to warm the rice packs just right, how to encourage without pushing too hard, and he talked to the kids, not at them. "You're not broken," he told one of them. "You're just learning a different way to be strong." Ava watched everything from her wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't complain once. Later that afternoon on the drive home, she said, "I like watching him help people." Michael glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Yeah? Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm part of something good." He smiled. His chest tightened, pride and fear warring within him as he realized how much Ava was growing through this. By the next Thursday, 5 families showed up. The week after that, it was 10. A local pastor brought folding chairs. A nearby diner started dropping off bagels and coffee. Somebody printed flyers that read, "Free movement classes, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Desert Breeze Park." They didn't mention Cade's name, but everyone knew who it was. A local reporter showed up with a camera and a notepad. Michael pulled Cade aside. "You okay with this?" Cade looked around at the families, at the kids moving their limbs, at Ava laughing with a girl on a walker. He nodded. "As long as it's not about me, it's about them." The reporter wrote her piece. It ran on the second page of the Phoenix Sun-Times under the headline, "10-year-old with a gift helps dozens heal in a city park." They didn't share his full name. Cade asked them not to, but people found out anyway. A local doctor offered to mentor him. A nonprofit asked if they could fund some equipment. Someone else offered free tutoring. For the first time since his mother passed, people didn't just look at Cade. They saw him. But Cade never bragged. He still laid out the towel the same way every Thursday. Still used the same duct-taped boots. Still checked in with Ava first before helping anyone else. He'd sometimes pause, looking at his boots as if they held his mother's strength, grounding him in his purpose. But now the park that once echoed with silence and sore bodies had become a place filled with movement, and a boy who had no home had become the heart of something bigger than himself. It had been 8 Thursdays. 8 Thursdays of towels laid on grass, of Ava's knees lifting higher, of small victories shared with strangers who'd become something closer to family. But this Thursday was different. Cade could feel it before they even pulled up to the park. The air was warmer. The trees swayed a little slower. Even Ava was quieter in the back seat, focused, almost like she was preparing for something big. When they arrived, a small crowd had already formed. Nothing loud or flashy, just families setting up folding chairs, therapists kneeling in front of kids, parents with hopeful eyes, and right in the middle of it all was that same worn-out bench under the palm tree. Cade didn't say anything at first, just unpacked his bag, rolled out the towel, and gave Ava a look. "You ready?" She nodded. No smile, just that look again, serious, determined. Michael wheeled her to the center of the mat. Cade knelt in front of her. "Same as before," he said softly. "We help you stand, you do the rest." Michael moved behind her and placed his hands under her arms. Cade took her legs, guiding them gently into place. "Okay?" Cade whispered. "On 3. She closed her eyes. 1, 2, 3. Michael lifted. Cade steadied her knees, and then she stood. Her legs trembled, her arms shook, but she was up on her own 2 feet. The crowd fell silent. Some kids gasped. One mother clapped a hand over her mouth. Ava opened her eyes slowly and smiled. "I'm standing." Cade blinked back something in his eyes. "Yeah, you are." Michael froze for a second, like he couldn't breathe. Then he let go. She stayed up. He stepped back, shaking. She's doing it." Cade stepped back, too, just a little. "She's been doing it." Ava took one shaky step, then another. And then, because she was 7 and brave and didn't know how to be afraid, she took a 3rd step, all on her own, before falling into her father's arms. He caught her, laughing, crying, his hands trembling as he held her. "You did it," he whispered. "You really did it." Ava turned to Cade. "You said I would." He gave her a small grin. "I said we'd try." The moment felt fragile, like a dream that could shatter, but it held, binding them in a shared triumph. That afternoon, nobody left the park in a hurry. People stayed, talked, hugged, some prayed. Cade sat back on the bench and watched it all. He didn't say much. He never did. Later that night, Michael stood in the kitchen while Cade pooed cereal in a bowl. "You know you changed everything," he said. Cade didn't look up. I didn't. Michael walked over and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "My daughter walked today, and not because of a hospital or a doctor or a miracle drug. She walked because a kid with nothing decided to show up again and again even when nobody asked him to." Cade nodded. "That's what my mom would have done." Michael's throat tightened. "I wish she could have seen this." "She did," Cade said softly. "I think she sees everything." Michael wiped his eyes. "Cade," he said quietly, "you're going to change a lot of lives." Cade looked up at him. "I already am." The words landed like a promise, heavy with the weight of all they'd overcome together. There are people in this world who might not have fancy degrees, shiny resumes, or a perfect past, but they carry something far more valuable: heart, grit, and a reason to keep showing up. Sometimes the most broken people are the ones holding the tools to help others heal. If this story moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it. And if you know a kid like Cade or a girl like Ava, tell them this: you matter. You're needed.